You're listening to Who's Hot, the UK OCR podcast where Wil Chung, along with elite racers Becky, Neal, Chris Shipley, and the occasional special guest, discuss the UK OCR series and other important races in the OCR calendar to find out who's hot.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the latest UK OCR Who's Hot podcast. My name is Wil Chung. I'm the host, and I am here with my elite racer, Chris Shipley. Chris, how are you doing?
Hello, how is it going? Not so elite this week.
Well, we'll get to that. Our other elite racer is busy clocking up the air miles. However, we have a special guest. We've got camera extraordinaire, Claire Rosser. Claire, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Will. Hey, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on. I am honoured to be here.
It's great to have you on board.
Absolute pleasure, Claire. But first of all, thank you very much for being our rabbit at the race of the live stream last week. Also to Ross Jordan, who was also our second rabbit. But thank you, Claire. And I know you you cover loads of races for us. So I think just from the whole of the UK OCR community, just want to say thank you. And thank you for...
You are very welcome. I'm not sure rabbit was the right term based on the distance of the course, but it makes me sound quick, so I'll take that.
So we're here, we are recapping the Body Hub Beast, which happened last weekend, Sunday, the 1st of September, over in Billericay, Essex. I'm already lost for words. I mean, what a race. What a race. Claire, let's start with you. Let's start with the women's race, but let's talk about the course layout and why it was, I guess, a little bit different from our usual UK OCR series races.
So this was definitely a course that we haven't seen before. You had a short run section at the start, I think around 750 meters. I wasn't really watching my watch, if I'm honest. And then it was straight into back to back obstacles. So it was shorter laps. It was much more obstacle heavy. And the other key thing was the spectatability, if that's a word, was fantastic.
Of course that's a word. Of course that's a word.
It was awesome, which also meant from a filming perspective, it was a brilliant location to film from because it was so easy. So yeah, the big difference was just that short run into heavy obstacles and a very different approach to what we've seen in any other series race, I think, in the UK.
So far, yeah.
So I think, Chris, 3 laps. So 3 laps of about 2K, something like that. 20-something obstacles. Do you want to quickly talk about the how it was laid out in terms of the race, Chris?
So yeah, I mean, if people saw the live feed, they would see that you went out on basically a short run out into a field, and then you came back in for this cluster of obstacles. At first, you did like a big lap around the outskirts of Darrell's Body Hub, and then that's when you really came into the event sort of mass of obstacles that he has there. And it, like Claire said, it was one after another. You had your rings, then you had your big, long, massively
84
long...
feet,
84 feet Goliath rigs. You had an Olympus that was 8 meters. You had massive walls. You had a slide.
4 walls back to front, didn't you? I think it was 3 foot, 4 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot walls, all back to back.
Incredible amount of obstacles, and the build quality of them was good as well. And we just have not seen this in the UK yet. Not since. Well, I don't think we've seen it in the UK at all. Not with this amount of obstacles on a 6K course in a series. It was
agreed with that. Quality, like you said, the quality of them was fantastic.
So we saw, and we did it in the live stream, but there's 23 obstacles. But as we say, guys, if you haven't seen the live feed, you really ought to look back just to see how these obstacles really were back to back. So 23 obstacles: Cogonut carry, Cogonut, blue hay bales, tire pit, parallel bars in 2 parts with ninja rings, moguls, Z wall, cage crawl, 3 walls. As we said, it was a 6, 7, and 8 climb.
4 walls in the end.
4 walls. Olympus, Leicester Falls, tire hop, balance beam, tire pull, seesaw, Goliath rig, which was in 4 parts. You had spinning wheels, firefighters, mixed holds, swinging bars, slip wall, Samson rig in 3 parts, monkey bars, rope traverse, a low rig, then another carry, vault jump, tire crunch, under, over. And as you say, just back. There was no respite, was there?
No gap between them.
Once you got into these.
No respite at all. And the trouble with that is it just made for an exciting race. I mean, every single racer on there, in the men's and women's field, everyone's got different attribute points. So having this sort of way that the obstacles were run and that the race was run, it meant that it was back and forth all the time. And every time someone thought they were getting the lead, someone else was like putting a little bit of pressure on just to try and, make their stamp on it. And that created people making mistakes, making surges, and then when you've got these surges going on, it just blows you out, and the racing just intensified through the whole lot. I mean, you guys were watching
the guys at the men's elite was just, I have never seen so many elite male racers in the UK so gassed in my life. I mean, everybody was ruined, except I think for Ramsey.
Yeah.
There was a lot of breaks between the obstacles, which you don't really that often see. People just standing, taking a minute, looking behind them, how close, how much time have I got? You don't see that.
Let's just hold, boys and girls, just hold on to the men's. We'll come back to those. Let's talk about the female, because unfortunately we weren't able to record the elite female race. So I want to spend some time talk about the elite females first. So in the UK OCR series, I've got the top 10 in front of me. And you guys, if you want to listen and have a look at the results, they are at the Body Hub Facebook group page. So first place, Shyla Duhani. Second place, Tamar Barkley. Third place, Laura Haywood. Fifth place, Pip Rainbow. Fifth place, Emma McCree. Followed by Emily Bonney, Nicola Gillespie, Ruth Battersea, Claire Bancroft, Encarni Caceres, and Wendy Brothers and Claire Rosser. I mean, straight away, Claire, we see Shy taking the podium.
And she looked strong, from what I could see once I caught back up with them in the village. She looked strong from the start. And we know from, Shy's background and the high rocks and all those kind of things that she does, she is super strong. And she's very used to, again, that the obstacle stamina that we don't typically see in OCR. So I think if I had called it in advance, she probably would have been right up there for me. She's not necessarily the quickest runner in the field, but again, as we saw, it wasn't about the running. And I think that took people by surprise.
Yeah, when we was all in the village waiting for the girls to come round, we were saying, all us guys were saying, right, we're going to see who's put the effort in and see how it's going to come out. So every time the laps come back, we'd like to see who was in front. And we was like, we were tweeting amongst ourselves. Did Tamar or Shyla, did they burn a match? Did they use too much energy? Who's going to start to fade? Trying to remind them that it was a longer race than it actually is. And we weren't sure who was just going to keep going. But then Shyla just pulled away a little bit by a little bit. Tamar made a few little minor mistakes, not mistakes that cost you a penalty, but mistakes that cost you time. And it just built up. It was immense.
I think the other thing there is that the way that course was set up is where it comes into play, that if you have a lot of experience from a ninja perspective, literally grabbing a hold slightly differently can save you 2 seconds. And I think we saw that also from Shy, is that experience in that type of a short event.
Yeah, and she was definitely able to handle the pressure as well.
She's cool as a cucumber 24/7, isn't she? Let's be honest.
Yeah, nothing fazed her that much. I mean, she dropped her glasses, didn't care, dropped her headband, didn't care. She just had the goal in mind, just kept moving forward, knew what she had to do, executed it superbly, and it just shows. Even managed a little cartwheel at the end.
As you do.
And a little dance.
with Tamar in seconds, I think when we were at the British Champs Wheel, we talked a little bit about Tamar and how much she has improved obstacle wise in the last 18 months working with Jack. And I think that again shone through, because she has been working so hard at that strength, stamina, obstacle efficiency, which was super important here. And that again shone through, because she wasn't, I can't remember exactly, but she wasn't that far behind Shy, was she?
No, she wasn't far behind at all. What was it? A few minutes? Yeah, a few minutes. And I said in the preview show how Tamar has actually become one of the best obstaclers in the country, and it does show. I mean, there's not many people on a start line that can touch, both Shyla and Tamar. They're probably up there with the best at the moment, especially on these they are so strong. I mean, I reckon they'll beat most of the guys in an arm wrestle any day.
Just
Let's see who puts their hand up for the challenge.
Just in terms of the preview show, Chris, you did get 2 out of the 3.
It's about time.
Why are you scoring some points that Becky hasn't been able to score this time?
That's what happens when she goes on too many holidays. I start to whip up the points.
And we've got Tamar sending through a voice note.
Body Hub Beast lived up to its name. It was such a hard race, but so much fun. I don't think I've ever done a race where you've just got to run and then back-to-back obstacles. It was fantastic. It was a real community event, allowing everybody to get involved, from the children to the age group to the elites. It just had something for everyone. The level of difficulty is what we need in the UK to get us ready for when we go to Euros and Worlds to be competitive. The first wave of men's was so exciting, seeing Ramunis come from nowhere to take Russell while he's on his penalty loop. And that was exactly what Daryl wanted. First past the post wins instead of having to wait to find out who'd won. It was just incredible. I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't a bit more competitive in the elite ladies. I guess with the dates clashing a little bit with Costa Rica. Maybe if this event is done again, it'll attract more people. But it's also incredible to see so many age group ladies stepping up and racing elite. That is what we want. It also meant that the ladies racing in the age group part were ones that maybe wouldn't have the confidence to take part, and actually they loved it, and it was incredible watching them, cheering for them, and just seeing them giving it a go. The thing that made this event the best was the spectator ability. Because each wave ran a race at a time, you could watch your friends when they weren't competing with you. You could be up close to them. You could be having a chat, shouting at them, encouraging them, videoing it. It was fantastic. And seeing when people would go off to run around the field, and then that excitement of who would be in the lead when they came back through the gap, I think every wave it pretty much changed depending on who were good at carrying. So that was just fantastic. I think all in all, it was an amazing event, and well done to Daryl.
Just quickly go over to the female age category as well. Sophie Jeffrey was the only competitor in the 10 to 12 years. And then in the 30 to 39 years, we've got Gemma Addy first place, Vicky Wheelhouse second place, Sam Cash in third place and in fourth place. And in the 40 to 49, Jenny Tudor first place, Emma Jeffrey second place, Erica Paul in third place. And in the 50 plus, we have Weldon. Claire, can I ask about your particular race?
You certainly can. So as many people commented on Sunday, I haven't really been seen on the start line for quite some time. Having been incredibly successful at little more than injuring myself, I've took a massive confidence hit with regards to basically falling off obstacles and breaking myself. So I thought local race should be nice, it's going to be nice and short. I'll go and have a go. What can possibly go wrong? And actually nothing did go wrong. I was really happy with what I did. I did get through to when I was on the second lap and I was coming up onto the monkey bars. I had Dan screaming at me, just go. And I was like, right now I'm trying to figure out if I want to pass out from the heat or vomit. So if you just give me a minute to relax, that would be great. So my goal was to get in there, get on some obstacles, prove to myself that A, I could do it. And B, that I wasn't going to fall off and hurt myself, and I did that. So after the second lap, I was like, you know what, I've actually achieved what I came here for, and I put a sensible head on and I walked away. But I am very hopeful that I may be making appearances back on the start line again next year. So fingers crossed. But it was, for me, the event itself, it was fantastic. It truly was. It was so well organised. I mean, huge kudos to Daryl for what he managed to put together. Everything about it worked really, really well. It was a fab event. I really enjoyed it. I love being a spectator there, and also it's on my doorstep, which is even better, of course.
Very lucky.
What a bloody race to come back to. I mean, of all the races you could have, thought, I'll have a go. It seems like this is probably one of the.
Well, toughest. I mean, I know my running at the moment is shocking. I'm not a runner anyway. Obstacles is where I can be better. And my strength is absolutely bang on. Like, I'm really strong at the moment. That's one thing I'm super happy about, but my running's terrible. So I thought, right, if I just go out nice and easy and everything else, and I actually stayed on the tail of the girls for the first lap, which I was quite happy with. I was also really gassed. So I've been chatting with my coach and gone, right, obstacle efficiency and running, go and fix it for me, because I really want to come back next year. And I was so proud of myself, but then I was kind of looking at my watch going, I shouldn't be running at this pace. This is not going to end well. But yeah, I was proud of that bit.
Well, funnily enough, you talk about you being gassed. Andy Bright sent me a comment about how his race went, and we'll talk about that in a second. But he screen captured his heart rate, and he is basically redlining the whole race. And I'm sure that's very much the same as everybody else.
I think we should give an extra special call out to him though, because he didn't know who he was. So I've already apologized to him on Facebook, and I will apologize again now. I certainly won't forget who he is next time I live stream.
Yes, I'm great. Sorry, but we will shout you out again, and we've got your comments later on. Talking about the positivity, I've got lots of female comments here, so please bear with me. There's so many that we've had so many great positive comments from the boss, the British Obstacle Sports feedback. So James Samir, Daryl White PT built an amazing course that was very obstacle dense. Watching the races on Saturday and Sunday, I could see that the course was a total four-on burner, but I could see also that the runners were actually really enjoying it, if grimacing was looking at as enjoyment. Stacey Speakman, hardest race I've done in the UK. I raced the age group wave on Sunday afternoon. It was a brilliant course, but I was very unprepared for that level of obstacle density and felt exhausted quite early on. I failed obstacles I can usually do, couldn't keep up with the others in my wave, and struggled even to finish. I'd like to go back and try the obstacles without the pressure of racing, as I think I'd really enjoy trying the rigs in my own slow pace rather than trying and failing. Well, it is a obstacle centre. I'm sure you'd be able to go back again anytime, Stacey. Victoria Wheelhouse ran in the age group wave on Sunday. This was only my second competitive race, as supposed to be a time trial, so I wasn't sure how it would go, but I was expecting it to be hard. I definitely didn't account for how that would affect my attempts. Managed some of the first time, but later failed ones I should have passed. I felt it did a very good job of showing me where I need to find training. And Carney, brilliant race with great obstacles. I've done only one more series race event with Spartan, so this was completely different, less running, but much more technical. Having so many rigs back to back was tough, but made a clean final lap even more satisfying. I absolutely loved the race. I thought it was an awesome event, one of my favorite UK races done this year. Emma Jeffrey, as a family, we had a brilliant time. The kids enjoyed their races and I enjoyed mine. Great course, great venue. Would definitely book again next year, smiley face. Ruth Batsey, brilliant race. I loved the challenge. I'd have normally feared this race as I'm not up to scratch on my rig game. I'm making progress, but I jumped into the fight and glad I did. The density of obstacles meant you actually got breathless from the obstacles, not the running, which was new one on me. So was the forearm. I thought the atmosphere was great as the course was so visible to all, so there was great support. Wendy Brothers, this was an obstacle dance race. Just what UK needs to prepare our athletes for international races. Huge shout out to Daryl for building this course and putting out such an awesome weekend of racing. Incredible achievement and a lot of hard work. The format allowed close and exciting racing, which was comparatively easy to film and great for spectators. So, Chris, before we go on to talk about the men's race, let's talk about the spectatability. I mean, Claire and Ross, you did a great job of filming, and I think just being so close to the obstacles and all the obstacles being next to each other was great. But Chris, spectatability points?
Spectatability points get 11 out of 10. I mean, it always happens when you're at a training center. Spectatability is always going to be that slight bit better because you're in a condensed area, really. So everything's on top of each other. It usually has routes around it. The area that they use for the run out isn't going to be massive, and it's all going to be in one spot. And for this one, you had chairs in the cafe bit, but then you had a route that you could go around so you could see everything as well. And because you could see the racers go around the outside lap and then the inner lap, it meant that you could just see the whole tail unfold. Yeah, it was amazing. It goes back to that sort of thing where we've been saying that a really great race should be like the Cloverfield, where you go out, come back in, go out, come back in, because the real action happens on the obstacles. And that's where things happen. You can see people go out for a run, but it's not that interesting. It's just running. When they come back in, and that's where the battles take place. And that's how we should all sort of look to see how obstacle races should be in the future.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And from a filming perspective as well, we all saw the live stream from Spartan, and trying to live stream when you're hanging off the back of a buggy with an iPhone is challenging. at best. Whereas that, I felt like we could really show everyone at home what was going on and kind of make them feel like they were part of it.
And I think that the point about the cloverleaf was really interesting. I love cloverleaf design, and Tough Mudder London South is just like that, Chris. So when you come run with me, you'll see that. But it was really interesting, Claire, wasn't it, that we saw the runners in the elite men's go out, and we'll talk a bit more about the elite men's now. But we saw the elite men's go out on the run, and then all of a sudden, Dan was a little bit behind, for example, and we're thinking, what the hell happened there? And in a way, that run was short enough that something was happening, but also long enough just to give you a little bit of mystery.
Absolutely. And I think the key thing of the mystery, which obviously I entirely forgot on the day, was that there was a 300-meter jerry can carry as part of that run out. So again, even if you are a super quick runner, you can't get the speed going because you get halfway around and you're picking up 2 heavy jerry cans, and then you've got a short sprint back into the main obstacles section again. So in reality, that run it's not even a run, is it, Chris?
Let me tell you, that jerry can, right? That was such a pivotal part. Pivotal, is that a word?
Pivotal.
That was such a pivotal part in how that race turned out, because
Definitely.
I mean, we're all different abilities at being able to carry something, and that jerry can was not easy to carry. It was slippery, it didn't sit on your shoulders well. So the best way to carry it, unfortunately, was as a farmer's carry. I mean, everyone went back to farmer's carry after a while. So you can imagine you had to carry that jerry can. You knew your grip was blowing.
The interesting thing there, though, Chris, was that we only had 1 jerry can. And for me, I would rather have 2 in a farmer's carry with the balance, because the fact that the water's sloshing around and, it was on one shoulder, it was on the back of my neck, it was on the other shoulder, and you just can't get it balanced. So I actually think you had a slightly easier ride in the males, Chris, if I can be honest.
Okay.
Look at that grimace on Chris's face, like, what?
I'm sure.
But then carries I like.
I'll tell you what, we can swap next time. I'm more than happy to swap and do the 1 jerry can. But I'm sure Dan would say that as well. We was all over 100%. The place. Yeah. But like I said, what a key part of the race. I mean, you're putting such an effort in there, and you could see people behind you. You knew what people's strengths were. So, we ran out on that, and people just burnt matches on that jerry can thing. But it was tactic enough. Like, you could think about the tactics. You knew where people were going to try and make moves, and I think that's what just got in people's heads on that.
And I think that's the reason we saw on the second and third lap, Ross come out first. He's got the height, he's got the strength, he's also got the speed in his legs off the back of it. And that, for me, with the kind of type of run you had there, the run section was good for him. It was certainly far better for him than it was for Dan, who, he'll probably shoot me when he listens to this, but we all know strength is not his strength. He's not the biggest runner in the field. So, that was, if I'd known at the time, was a very clear reason, rather than me accusing Dan of falling over.
Which I thought was really
Which is
funny.
probably more likely, to be fair.
I was watching the live feedback and I was like, no, Dan's just on a carry. And he was like, oh, I don't know what's happened. Shipley's overtaken him. What's going on in this crazy world where I'm running
I
fast?
just assumed he'd stacked it somewhere and broken a toe, which is normal outcome.
Then because I mean, it just shows his running ability, because he's always able, that section after we put the jerry cans down, every time I put a jerry can down, I knew that if I didn't have a gap on Dan, he was going to catch me. And every time he did. And it's the same with Ramsey. When I had that jerry can on the second lap, we did the jerry can. Every time I put it down, I could see Ramsey behind me. And I knew if he was going to catch me by the time we got to the obstacles, I had no chance. And it was just down to that. So, the other guys must have been feeling it as well, apart from Russell, who had a bit of a gap. So he had a bit of a chance to be assured that he had chances to make mistakes. But when we was all in that bundle of that group of people, every time you did something, you knew that you had to try and get ahead, or they were going to capitalize on any weakness that you had. And they did. They did.
So before we carry on to talk about the men's race, I'll go through the UK OCR Series top 10. We've got Ramirez Wickes, well done Ramsey, on podium. First place, Russell Walsh, second place, and Daniel Titcombe, third place, followed by our very own Chris Shipley, who beat his compatriot Darren Martin into fifth place. John Paul is sixth, Ryan Ibbotson, Andy Bright, Finley Greenleaf, Simon Briggs, Oliver Addy, Adam Wakeling, and Hayden Andrews. We had Liam Morrow and Billy Stubbs as well, who unfortunately DNF'd. And in the age group category, in the 10 to 12 age group, we had Harry Jeffrey in first place, Archie Bright second place, Jake White in third place, Ollie White in fourth place, and Austin Lever in fifth place. 13 to 14 years old, Alex Cook first place, Josh Lever in second place, and Frankie in third place. 15 to 19, we had Dan Warren in first place and Ryan Williams in second place. The 30 to 39, James Marigold in first place, Jake Childs in second place, and Adam Bateman in third place. In the 40 to 49, we had Simon Briggs, and in the 50 plus, we had Andrew Jones. Sorry, back to the race, Chris. It was really interesting that when you guys went out, like, how is he so far back? But then, as Claire mentioned before, and as we've seen in lots of comments, when we actually got to the obstacles, there were parts when everyone was gassed. I saw in parts of that filming, Russ just kind of taking a break on the little bit of blue mat, looking behind him and seeing how far back at that point Ramsey was. So it was intense, absolutely intense.
Yeah, I mean, from a racing perspective, to be in that situation, we have not done before. We don't race in Europe that often. We don't have these technical obstacles. We don't have places where people are catching you and you're so gassed because you've been putting effort in places where you shouldn't be putting effort to try and do well on places where you need to have grip strength, you need to have breath in you. I mean, I haven't even trained that hard for a while. It was so good, and it's what we've been missing so much. It's just not been about. And you know, apart from the lack of some other races being there, it had everything.
Claire, you were there. It had everything.
It did have everything. And I think the key thing was it was just different. You know, when we're looking at OCR is not one thing. And we can debate for hours and hours and hours about what we think it is. But in reality, it's not one thing. And if you look at the races that we have, typically, what do we see? Somewhere between 6 and 12 to 14K, run obstacle, run obstacle, run obstacle. And there are Spartan, you know, we know what the obstacles are going to be there. Nuclear has a few more technical now, but again, they're very spaced out. To bring in a different style of race into the series, for me, is an absolute winner, because everybody in OCR also has different strengths, and it allows people to shine. You know, OCR should never be about who's the fastest runner. Number one for me should be about who is the most efficient on obstacles, and then all of the other parts kind of add up into the overall picture. So I think having something come into it which is same but very different is a really good thing for the series, and I'm very, very excited to see it in there next year. No pressure, Daryl.
No pressure. Let me go to the comments, and then we'll talk a little bit about what makes it, why is it so different. So Andrew Durrance, I run the age group wave in the afternoon after doing nuclear fit class in the morning. Not the brightest thing to do. Of course not, Andrew. What are you doing? I haven't done a testing obstacle heavy race since the Euros, and this was exactly what I'd hoped for. The heat played a massive part in the afternoon. At one point, my head was spinning and I was dizzy, although that could have been from me to my head. I managed to have a clean race with no failures. I don't think anyone else in the afternoon did that, and there were lots of penalty loops, in some cases, 15 of them. Adam Wakeling, brutal. Toughest race, kilometre for kilometre, I've done. Also wins an award for taking skin off my hands. Very few obstacles. Simon Baywatch, I do believe I said it will test the elite athlete, and I was right. It was a great course, and my hands were still suffering from it now. I'm happy with where I placed, considering that I was against the elite runner. It may have only been 6K, but it was definitely one of the hardest races in the OCR series that I have raced. John Paul, great race, well worth going. Back-to-back obstacles really takes it out of your arms. The carry was long and cunningly disguised around the corner. And that hurt on lap 2. Nathan Hawkins, the event was awesome on all levels, an absolute brutal course, and it was such an exciting race to watch on the Sunday. Often it looks like the elites go through courses with next to no effort. I know it's all the hard work they put in before to make it look easy. So it was different to see a race when the top people were so worn down, what was a very short course, and when the placement of racers was in question right until the last moments. We'll come back to that. It's not often we see something new and exciting, but Body Hub and Daryl really pulled this one. Andy Bright, thanks for your comments, Andy, and we will definitely shout you out on the next one. What can I say? I thought I knew what I was in for, having raced Winter Beast and visited a few to train. However, I was completely wrong. The race was just insane. It was just flat out racing from the get-go, and then into a seemingly never-ending barrage of rigs and obstacles. Having so many people and spectators so close was amazing compared to races. The racing was close in all ways, which was great to see. Big well done to Darrell. He's pulled off a pretty unique race in a very short space of time. I, for one, loved every aspect. Russell Walsh, instead of leaving a voice note with his best friend and best buddy Chris, he sent me a DM. What a venue, what a race. This setup was amazing. Real test to us all, and has to be one of the best OCR races to date. We need more events like this in the series. Great test of grip strength, endurance, and Ramunis showing off all of his talent. Well done to him. I picked up a good lead on the second lap during the carry. As I came into the obstacles, I tried not to hesitate too much and kept moving. The last lap, the carry really taxed my grip. It wasn't heavy, and it was a good distance. I think I just held on for too long without taking a break. So coming into the final section of rigs, the arm pump was getting real. I made a small mistake on one rig, causing me to gain a penalty, and another fail on the low rig. I could see Ramunis hunting me down, so again, didn't want to waste much time. However, as I was pushing as hard as I could around the penalty loop, old Git trundled past me for an amazing rig. Staying accountable, I'm off to train and get my grip like Ramunis. 10 out of 10. And final word from Ramsey, the winner. It was incredible setup for a short course. Running speedy is very needed, but climbing plays a vital role when you're on the short course. For me, it was a top race. Endless obstacles, exactly what I miss in my races. I know I said running, more obstacles, but definitely running must be in any race. Jungle of obstacles worked well for my skills, and as usual, there's always space to move my running skills. Chris, I mean, Russell there kind of talked what the race was, and Claire and I was watching, but it was just... It was intense because people were changing places all the time, and it was true. You never really knew who was going to win or any of the positions until they actually crossed the line.
Yeah, and it just shows, doesn't it, that how much effort you got to put in to just try and stay on top. I mean, Russell was, he had such a lead, but he was putting in everything, and it shows the kind of racer he is on that kind of course, because he was flying through everything, but the pressure got to him and he had to try and maintain that lead, carrying them jerry cans again. Just everyone doing the same thing.
But on that note, if we cast our mind back to when we first saw Russ, which I think was Total Warrior in 22, and now look at that same... Well, he's not the same racer, is he?
No, he's not. It's just
incredible.
He's doing things in his garage that I don't think anyone's doing. We've not seen the inside of his garage properly, but I reckon there's more in there than he lets on.
There's certainly a secret somewhere to make that much of a difference in 2 years.
Yeah, he's on a roll, but you could see he loves obstacle racing. He's traveling miles all the time to come down, and he's the kind of racer that does do well at these sort of things. And it's a shame that some of the UK OCR races don't let that kind of athlete show what is capable. It's the same even with Dan. You know, his skill set's incredible as well. But Ramunis, some of the races just do not show the skill set of the races that we have. Everyone's saying, oh, we need some more technical races. That's because we've got racers who are technical. We can compete in these really hard events now. It's not like it was back in the day where everyone's complaining about hard obstacles. We can do them. And we need the races to show that, because we need to show Europe that we're coming for them.
Love it.
Absolutely. We're going to have a shit sandwich. I want to talk about penalties. There's lots of comments about penalties. I don't know who wants to start it off, and kind of maybe where we can help Darrell to fix it, and then we'll talk about actually so much positivity. Let's talk about penalties.
Yeah, I think, the challenge obviously with Body Hub is the size of the location. And I think Darrell worked really well with what he had, particularly as there was a large event going on in the field next door. He was quite constrained about, what additional space he could get. So the penalty loop was about 30 meters, 2 jerry can carries. Chris said somebody did 15 penalty loops. Theoretically, someone shouldn't be able to do 15 penalty loops unless they're there till midnight. So for me, if Darrell could find the space to be able to extend that out to something that makes it a penalty, because those obstacles, some of them are tough, and you could easily do that penalty loop. If I think about the Olympus wall, which you said was 8 meters, Chris, I could have done way more penalty loops in the time it took me to the Olympus wall, and my arms would have felt much happier afterwards. So for me, I think if he could find a way to extend that penalty loop out, that would definitely be one of the few upsides I could find for the race.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, we all want sort of people to complete and compete in these things and not be put off by failure of obstacles, but it's really difficult to find that balance. And I've been trying to find a way for Daryl to do it, and I couldn't find an easy way of doing it without upsetting someone in my head, and my head's not got a lot of things going on in there. So for Daryl to do it, I mean, yeah, it's difficult, but where do we draw the line of it being too difficult? Where do we draw the line of it being too easy? Yes, it should have been longer, but what do we do? And it's very difficult. But I'm sure Daryl's one of these guys that takes feedback very seriously, and he loves it. So I think he's going to take it on board and come up with a fine and dandy solution.
Yeah, you're right. There is no easy answer, is there? Because it's never going to be perfect. And I don't think having the same penalty for every race is also the right approach, because the races are different. But if I look at the obstacles, for example, that Russell failed that pushed him down into second versus the time he spent in the penalty.
Yeah, he should have been fourth, shouldn't he? Which would have made me third.
I'm not sure I'd go that far, if I'm honest.
Whatever, Claire.
But yeah, like we've said, and I know you're going to come to positives. It was a small thing on the day. This is the first event that Daryl's run like this. And at the end, we're an OCR community. If we only find one thing that we think could be improved,
that's doing really, really
won,
well.
Right?
It's doing really, really well. Yeah, when the keyboard warriors jump on the keyboard and there's hardly any negative comments, you're a winner.
100%.
I mean, look, all those comments. This is the race that's had the most comments when I've asked for comments about feedback on the race, and everything's been absolutely positive. And the takeouts for me, different obstacle dance needs to be on. Almost everyone's like, it needs to be back next year. It needs to be back next year. So Daryl, will take away some of the feedback. But yes, if people are shouting out to say we want it back, he's obviously done something really, really, really right. So again, what do you guys think? Why was it being so positively taken as part of the race, part of the series?
I go back to my comment. Different.
Yeah.
It was different. It added a new dynamic. It allowed different racers to showcase their strengths, which they haven't had the ability to do so before. And if we look at who stood on the top of those podiums, Shai and Ramsey, and what are their strengths? Obstacle stamina. If you look at those two, both of them have the same strength. So for me, it was the series, because the sport is so different and varied and vast, having a range of races which are all different is a massive positive, because it allows everybody that opportunity to go, hey, look, I'm really cool at this.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've looked at a race come up in the series and I've got really excited about wanting to do. Like when we did the preview show, I was like, do you know what? I cannot wait for this race. I mean, there's been other preview shows and I'm like, well, I'm not that upset that I'm missing it. But when this one was there, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm going to this. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for. I mean, next year, I don't know how he's going to cope with the amount of people that's probably going to want to do this, because there's going to be people so much FOMO being like, oh, I wish I'd done that. And it's a shame that there weren't some other people there, because can you imagine some of the other races trying to compete with everyone else in the women's and the men's? It would have just been crazy. I mean, I don't know how he's going to make this event better, because when you're already doing something good, it's so difficult to make improvements. And when there's going to be more people, it's going to be a challenge.
It is going to be a challenge. I think one thing that that stood out to me as well that was interesting was when we saw the start times come out and the wave sizes. I was like, 8. That sounds pretty chunky. That's a small course. Is that going to work? Is it the right? And actually, do you know? I don't know about you, Chris, but from what I saw, it actually did work really nicely.
Yeah.
There was one point on the firefighters where there was 4 of you, and from a spectator perspective, again, it was brilliant. But the run and the carry was enough to stretch the field out, and I thought he did that really well. There was enough stretch in the field to make enough space. I didn't see anybody waiting to get onto an obstacle.
No.
But that again will be Daryl's challenge.
To be fair, Claire, I think if they were waiting, they probably wanted the rest anyway.
Exactly. They were quite happy to wait. Absolutely. But that will be Daryl's challenge next year when he gets 150 racers sign up.
Yeah. Especially when you have more people who are even closer to their similarities. If you had people that can run the same sort of pace and do the obstacles in the same sort of way, that's when you're going to get races running together. I mean, yeah, it is going to be a challenge and something that we left out. Well, Daryl's willing to talk and really willing to to figure things out. And I'm sure everyone in the UK OCR series and community can help sort this out, because we need to work it out. We need to work these things out to make the sport better.
Defo. And what will be interesting for me next year is seeing how Ramsey and Shai performed. You know, there's a lot of those 100-meter racers out there that have come from Ninja that are very good and very strong. Is this the kind of race actually that could tempt them a little bit further onto the cool side?
Yeah, they all say, oh, I wouldn't mind doing a longer race, but yeah, this is the one for them. They don't have to worry about the running. They've seen Ramsey and Shai on the podium. They're probably sitting there thinking, well, I can do that. I can run a little bit faster than them, possibly. You know?
And if you look at the flat 10, you know, if you took, say, for example, flat 5K times, and you took Russ and Dan, who'd sit at the top of that, versus the rest of the field, basically, that just shows that for once it's not the fastest that ends up on top.
Yeah, and it's great. That's one of the things about obstacle racing I've always loved. It's the fact that people like myself, who don't have the quickest, fastest 10K running time, they can compete with people that they will never, ever be able to run that fast with. And that's what's always appealed to obstacle racing, because it means it's an overall fitness of ability and being able to do stuff that other, like just your average Joe runner can't do.
How do you think I ended up in OCR?
That's how we all ended up there. Jack of all trades.
Master of none.
Exactly.
Although if he puts more carries in, I wouldn't be sad about that. I'm good.
So someone that's not done many 3Ks, and I haven't really covered the 3K series. What makes this different from the 3K? Because again, with so many positive comments about this, but I don't think I've heard the same overwhelming positivity of other 3K races compared to this one.
The obstacles, short and sweet. It was the back-to-back.
Yeah, I mean, this would work well even in a 3K format. If you took it down and just took it down to the 3K distance, this race would still be as awesome. It's because the 3K race,
more awesome, less running.
Yeah. Well, it would be, and the thing is, you'll be able to push that a little bit harder. Don't forget, this was still around the 40-minute mark for a race. That's 10K race sort of pace. I think some Spartan.
I was going to say, you see a Spartan Super in that time.
Super at that distance, exactly. So it's still a long race. You knock that down to a 3K, that's perfect. 25 minutes.
I think in both the male and female elite, certainly in the females, the last runners were over an hour.
Yeah.
On a 5.2K course.
It's crazy.
I mean, that just shows how tough it really was. Because, I mean, the obstacles were, I think I clocked that was about 400 meters through those obstacles, Chris?
Yeah. It wasn't very far, but it was just, you're just on the limit. And the thing is as well, going to the 3K situation, we need races like this to get us ready for the 3Ks, because, you know, it's got to be, I mean, apart from the Worlds one where they're doing it in 13 minutes, the usual classic ones were hardcore obstacles. And that's where it's going to be a change between the two races, because one's going to be obstacle proficiency and the other one can be the running, your endurance, your things like that. It's going to separate the two different races that you're going to get in OCR. You don't have a sprinter looking the same as a 10Ker. They've got different builds. They're good at different things, and that's how it should go.
So thanks, guys. We'll wrap it up there. My thank you to Ross Jordan for being our rabbit of the weekend, and of course to Claire Rosser, who has been our rabbit, but also being our special guest today. You can find her on Instagram at Claire_OCR. As always, thanks to Chris Shipley, our elite racer. You can find him on Instagram at Obstacle Race Dude. And thank you to British Obstacle Sports for their support. You can follow them on Instagram at British Obstacle Sports. If you haven't already, you should be following UK OCR on all the channels at UK OCR. And if you like what you hear, you can always go to Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon to support us further. We will be back next month to preview the final race of the UK OCR series, Tough Mudder Northwest. 16K, it's going to be wet, it's going to be cold, it's going to be very muddy, and it's far different from the beast at Body Hub as we can get. Ain't no glory for the faint of heart. We all stars, win or lose, we don't play the part. And when the going getting tough, I get to going hard. You bring your best and you know I'ma tear them apart.